Hello, hello, everyone. Just getting everyone in here.
Hello.
Hello. We'll get started in just a moment. I just want to say if you need Spanish language interpretation, you can click the globe in the bottom of your screen and select interpretation. We have Elle and Gloria here today, as well as Mel for ASL interpretation. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll pass it now to Elle to explain a little bit about how to set that up before we get going.
All right, thank you, Eva. Gracias, Eva. Hola a todos, soy Elle, uso el pronombre ella y junto con mi colega Gloria, que también usa el pronombre ella, vamos a estar interpretando al inglés y al español. Y como dijo Eva, también estamos acompañados de Mel, que está interpretando al ASL. Hi everyone, I'm Elle. I use they, them pronouns, and I'll be interpreting today's call into English and Spanish along with Gloria, who also uses they, them pronouns. And we'll just review a few guidelines on how to access the Zoom interpretation feature. Así que para repasar cómo va a funcionar la interpretación por Zoom, ya deben de ver, si están conectadas a través de su computadora, deben de ver un globo, un icono de un globo en la parte de abajo de su pantalla de Zoom, que le van a dar clic y ahí van a escoger interpretación y escoger su idioma y después presionar finalizar. So if you're connected via your computer on Zoom, you should see a globe icon on the bottom of your screen with the word interpretation. Click on that and then choose your language and then click done. Y si están conectadas a través de su aplicación en su celular o una tableta, busquen 3 puntitos que dicen más y de ahí van a presionar interpretación de idiomas, escoger su idioma y después presionar finalizar. And if you're connected via your smartphone app or tablet, look for 3 dots that say more, click on it and then click on language interpretation and then choose English or Spanish, and then click done. And so now I'll do a bit of a test. I'll talk in English, and while my colleague Gloria interprets on the Spanish channel. So if you are listening into the Spanish channel, you should hear Gloria interpreting right now. And if you could give me a heads up in the chat or a thumbs up to let me know that you are indeed connected to our Spanish channel and that is working. Let me know. Give me some kind of sign that you can hear Gloria interpreting right now. In the chat, I will keep talking until someone lets me know that that is indeed working. In the chat, okay, I see some thumbs up. Awesome. Okay, so I'll do the same in Spanish now. Entonces, si están escuchando al canal de inglés, deben de escuchar a mi colega Gloria, que está actualmente interpretando, así si me pueden dar una señal que pueden escuchar a la interpretación en inglés, perfecto. Así que voy a continuar en español. Para tener un evento multilingüe virtual se requiere el compromiso de todas las personas, así que le pedimos que por favor hablen despacio, hablen en voz alta, solo una persona a la vez. Acuérdense de respirar y tomar una pausa, especialmente cuando hagan preguntas o cambien de presentador. Dejen su micrófono en mudo cuando no estén hablando. Y si tienen algún problema con la interpretación, déjenos saber por el chat y a ver cómo le podemos ayudar. Así que con esto ya podemos empezar. Muchas gracias.
Great, thank you so much. Hi everyone, before we get started, I'd just like to introduce myself. My name is Ava, my pronouns are she, her, hers, and I will be monitoring this session on behalf of the convening planning team. If you need any tech support, please feel free to message me. If something hurtful or harmful arises over the course of this session, I'm also here to guide us through navigating that, so please feel free to message me directly if you have any concerns. This meeting will be recorded, so if you are not comfortable with that, I would urge you to turn off your video. I would like to point us to the community agreements, which I'm sharing in the chat. There we go. And then I'd also like to note that if at any point you need to step away into a supportive environment to breathe, ground yourself, or talk through how you're feeling, Kate, our wellness facilitator, will be available in this Zoom room if you just need a safe place to go and take a break. And I will be dropping that in the chat now. Thank you, Elle, for dropping those community agreements. I didn't mean to send that directly to you. So great, and so without further ado, I will be introducing our amazing panel for today. Poor Magazine, Prensa POBRE, is a poor people-led, Indigenous people-led, grassroots nonprofit arts and organization dedicated to providing revolutionary media access, art education, and advocacy to silenced youth, adults, and elders in poverty across the globe. In 21 years of collective love and struggle, the poor, unhoused, disabled, Black, Brown, Indigenous, elder, and youth leaders, artists, and cultural workers of Poor Magazine, Prensa POBRE, have shared the medicine of poverty scholarship. The notion of poverty scholarship was born in the calles, prisons, street corners, community centers, welfare offices, shelters, kitchen tables, assembly lines, tenements, favelas, projects, and ghettos, all the places people don't look for educators, experts, leaders, researchers, lecturers, linguists, artists, creative thinkers, writers, and media producers. Poverty scholars are everywhere. Art for a New Future envisions where creative expression and abolition live hand in hand, transforming how we love and heal together. Poor Magazine, Prensa POBRE, will share their vision for solidarity, ComeUnity Reparations, and media making in this workshop. It will include powerful performances, readings from the Poverty Scholarship book, teachings on poor and traumatized people's theory and how to hold each other through trauma into a true definition of interdependent relationships. I will allow our amazing panel to take over from here, and I hope you all enjoy the session. Thank you so much.
Muteado, silencio, presente y me alegro. Mis palabras son mis balas, mi lápiz es mi arma. Muteado, silencio, my words are my bullets, my pen is my gun. So sit back and relax, because we're gonna drive out your minds. We didn't cross the border crossed us. Nosotros no cruzamos la frontera nos cruzó a nosotros. ¿Cuál es el pinche sueño americano? El mismo sueño que todos oímos, pero poco logramos. What is the American dream? The same dream that we all hear about, but only a few of us get to see.
No nonprofit organizer can speak for the Pope. No college professor could speak for the Pope. I could speak for the Pope because I'm still among the Pope. Count my head, I'm on the broke on this block. You see me, because I own less than you. You dish me these slums. My frustration, my this thirst, my starvation, my these wants, mine, these tears, mine. Displacement fears, mine. They're with me all the time. No president is mine, and neither is his government. They straight represent the class hate I resent. I don't count the institutions of power. I don't count to a racist coward. Picture me not once worshiping they flag, as long as they continue to deny its slag. No news reporter could speak for the Pope. No social worker could speak for the Pope. I could speak for the Pope because I'm still among the Pope. Count my head, I'm on the broke on this block. You see me, D. Allen, Deep East Oakland, California. He, him, his.
Buenas tardes. Soy una de las tantas personas que he estado sin casa aquí en San Francisco y actualmente estoy viviendo en Jóvenes y aprendiendo de toda la medicina de ellos. Y aquí estoy para soportar y ayudar a todos los que se puedan.
I am that poverty scholar, that houseless mama, that houseless daughter. You see that mama daughter sleeping in a tent? That's because we don't got money for the rent. All those people you don't want to see, never want to be, look away from me. What you want to do, arrest me? We're in your city. Yeah, I'm a poverty scholar and I rock my jailhouse attire because me and my po mama did jail time for the poverty crime of being unhoused in this occupied indigenous holler. No, orange ain't the new black. Don't believe any of that. Crackle Hollywood will always sell you that smack. Yeah, I'm a poverty scholar, the melanin challenged daughter of a strong Afro-Boricua mama, for without whom there would be no me. A mama soltera and a welfare queen.
We are formerly houseless, displaced, evicted, bordered, criminalized poets, land liberators, cultural workers, a poor magazine, Prensa POBRE. We are the clients, the patients in your shelters, residents.
Anthropology, ethnography, psychology. Anthropology, ethnography, psychology, and anthro-wrongology. Deconstructing our struggles while our communities are dismantled and left in rubble. Acquired with academic privilege, linguistic domination gifts, long ago sorted and separated in Americlan school systems. The myth of inclusion and the cult of independence. How are you gonna fly to Africa, Oakland, and Bangladesh, but not so much as slice off a piece of your academic privilege and access? How are you gonna fly back to your 21st century publishers, your theories and your thesis on your final tests? Now we got a new form, a new fellowship, a brothership, a sistership, a mamaship. It's called poverty scholarship. So what is poverty scholarship, family? And thank you everybody for being here. To all the poverty scholars out there, folks who struggle to keep a roof over your head, to live through these cages and these plantations that they put us bodies in. For all of you who might have dealt with eviction, gentrification, and for all of you housed folks who are trying to decolonize your minds away from the lies that capitalism teaches you every day in this stolen land. Welcome. We just humble poor peoples living and activating a different way of solving our own problems through self-determination. Brother D, what's poverty scholarship?
The notion of poverty scholarship was born in the calles, the prisons, street corners, community centers, welfare offices, shelters, kitchen tables, assembly lines, tenements, favelas, projects, and ghettos. All the places people don't look for educators, experts, leaders, researchers, lecturers, linguists, artists, creative thinkers, writers, and media producers.
Poverty scholars are told that our knowledge is not valid, legitimate, our speech is improper, our work and our choices criminal, our words and our choices criminal.
Poverty scholars are usually silenced, incarcerated, displaced, gentrified, disabled, ableized, marginalized, sorted, separated, and oftentimes extinguished.
And again, I know there was a quick intro about Poor Magazine, Prensa Pobre. Again, just like my carnala, my sister Tanya was saying, we are poverty scholars, multiracial, multi-ethnicity, indigenous-led organization, media arts organization, all of us coming out of poverty. again coming together to realize and make Homefulness, Poor Magazine, and again flip the story about media, about us, without us, like my sister Tiny is, and then again, this is Poor Magazine, Prensa Pobre.
Magazine has done many endeavors throughout our whole 25 years as a internet news service and media advocacy organization for all villages. We have, in addition to Magazine, we have Press, where authors who are the underclass, like all of us here, can come in and write their own books, telling their own stories in their own context. We also have a newspaper called News. We also have Jails the Streets, which we launched back in February 26th. And we also have Pandemic Poetry, which can be found in the Press book, The People's Survival Guide through COVID-19 and the Virus of Poverty. Family resistance against CPS, APS, and the cops. We have a mandate within our organization to never call the cops ever to solve any of our problems. And this Press book called How to Not Call the Cops Ever is proof of what we teach. And we support the Land Back movement, which is all across Turtle Island. And what is homefulness? It's more than just a parcel of land in the middle of the slums of East Oakland. Homefulness has so many parts within it. It is the parent organization, Magazine, which is us. It is Press, our book publishing arm. It is also a liberation school for the children of the Po. It is also a radio station on site, KEXU 96.1 FM, Crossroads. It is a free lending library for the public called the Uncle Al, Mama D Living Library. It is also a mini barnyard all the way in the back, which contains 5 chickens and 2 goats.
Come on.
This way, children can get to learn where their food comes from other than a supermarket, where eggs come from, where dairy comes from. It is also the site of 4 new townhouses that have yet to be finished. We're housing for our folks. But put all these elements together, homefulness is our own Po people's indigenous-led solution to eviction, displacement, and homelessness.
Oh. So the topic of this beautiful convening, justice arts, and I know that it seems like a lot of y'all do a lot of work in these cages that they are building for us, Black and Brown, Indigenous, and poor people, and I've always been building. It ain't nothing new under the settler sun. One of our goals is that we don't want to be saved, just like we don't want to be caged. We don't need a philanthropist to take us down a charity crumb. And matter of fact, we don't need no motherfucking charity either, for that matter. What we need is for people to recognize that as poor folks, as Indigenous peoples, we have our own solutions. We always have. We align ourselves with landless peoples and poor people's movements all across Mama Earth. There's nothing exactly like us in this stolen Turtle Island, but the Zapatistas in Chiapas, Move Africa, Long Live John Africa, and of course what Philadelphia Politrickster did to, and the haters, not just that Politrickster mayor, did to that move, to Movimiento Sin Tierra, MST, and the Shack Dwellers Union in South Africa, Abaze Motondondolo. These are movements that, like us, are coming together under the concept of poverty, land liberation, and self-determination. And that's what unifies us. As also what unifies us is trauma. Going through this shit is not cute. There's nothing glamorous about what we're sharing with you today. Going back to the beginnings, the roots, the raíces of this movement. It started with me and my mom, a houseless Indigenous mother and daughter, a disabled mother, a mixed race woman of color who had struggled with torture in orphanages and foster homes, whose body was molested over 210 times by the time she was 3 years old, because she was an unprotected child, which is one of the most dangerous things to be, in my opinion. And essentially out of that, kept it moving. They call it resilience. I don't know about resilience. I don't know about more code words. I know that as poor people, we put on our shoes and clothes and we keep it moving. And raised me by any means necessary. And when she was finally unable to keep on keeping on and became disabled, that was when I was 11 years old, and we ended up on the street of this stolen land. We ended up becoming micro business people, micro negocios, like poor families do all over the globe. Criminalized for that act in this society, in this stolen land, for not having access to rent, not having money for the lie of rent, not having money for these lies of commerce and capitalism that runs through everything in this stolen land. And we ended up on the street where we stayed for years, in and out of motel rooms when we were lucky enough to get them, shelter beds, the backseat of a hoopty if we had one, and park benches, doorways, and wherever we might be able to squat. But around the 90s, I was incarcerated for the act of being houseless. For any of you who might be tuning in from other parts of Mama Earth, it's an act of criminality in the United Snakes to be houseless, to be without a roof. There's over 284 laws. Yeah, I definitely said it that way. On these stolen books that criminalize acts of poverty, as well as being a person of color, Black and brown, Indigenous person in this land is already criminalized. So at that point, once I was incarcerated, we really weren't even able to go on with our micro business anymore. And coming out of that, it almost killed us multiple times. We began to get consciousness. My mom did, because we were not conscious. We were not aware of poverty globally and locally. This society doesn't want to see you when you're poor. It goes to great lengths to criminalize and get rid of you if you are a poor body in public that isn't really our public. And coming out of that, we began the process of learning back the culture that was stolen from us, and began the process of collectively working with other poor people and develop the concept of poverty scholarship. The idea that we actually have knowledge, we have solutions, and we have our own agency, our own power as people who have struggled with eviction, displacement, like my brother D said, all of these ways that it's a setup from the get up for poor people here. And coming out of that, we began a 24-year process of lifting up of different poor people's led solutions to incarceration, to caging, to land stealing, and to the ongoing criminalization of our bodies. Coming out of that in 2011, we began a process to move off of the philanthropy charity industrial complex, which we never really were supported by anyway, but we had gotten some philanthropy grants, and we realized that that was continuing a perpetration of harm against us as poor and houseless people. and that what we really needed to do was lift up the scholarship that we already had. And we began a very powerful process of building our own curriculum, which ultimately became this book, which I know that you guys have as the thing to promote today. It's a book that we give away for free to poor people. We'll send it wherever you want, and we sell it to folks who have different forms of race and class privilege. From that, we were also very, very clear on what we needed to do as poor and houseless people, as Indigenous peoples, that actually we needed to lift up a different way to survive and to thrive, which was based on our own deep structures as pan-Indigenous, pan-poor people in this stolen land. And that began a process to what we're in today, which is homefulness. And I do want people to say that word. It's a word that we came up with, homefulness with one L, a homeless people's solution to homelessness. Now we're in a time, and really nothing new again under the settler sun, where again, the war on the poor continues, but it's gotten worse. We're going to be showing a couple videos to hear from one of our many projects that we do to make sure that there's no more about us, without us, corp rape media. And I did say corp rape, which uses poor people's stories as another form of trauma porn, as another form of selling our stories for their profit, and never really any point for us. So Ruthless Radio is one of our many projects. You can get our work, by the way, on YouTube, Poor News Network, as well as we're all on the digital streets, Instascam, Facecrack, Twitter, @Poor Magazine.
Yeah, tell them what Ruthless Radio is.
But Ruthless Radio is making sure that folks who are out on the streets currently struggling with this violence called sweeps and criminalization and endless removal are telling their own stories. But in addition, not just for the sake of telling a story, but to help other people build their own movement like homefulness. We also go all over Mama Earth, and we're totally open to invitations to come to your towns and cities to share this medicine. This is for us the only way that we can actually solve, if you will, this ongoing war on the poor, is for our voices to be lifted up and for people to actually recognize that we have our own scholarship. So we're going to hear this brother is one of the Ruthless Radio reporters currently dealing with the violence called sweeps, which is hygienic metaphors for poor people's bodies. Take those words apart. And then we'll be hearing from another brother who's in a motel temporarily and was in there for the pandemic, but then the mayor, the politrickster mayor of San Francisco, rescinded the offer and actually began a process to evict them from motels.
Remember the name of this mayor, folks. San Francisco Mayor London Breed.
Go ahead.
Ooh.
Go ahead, Emily.
Sí, aquí estamos abiertos, que está participando también en eso, en entregar comida a amigos, la gente de aquí, la verdad, agradecemos mucho lo que están haciendo porque pues es una gran ayuda para el pueblo.
Oiga, ¿y usted no le ha tocado que andan, ahorita estaba hablando la muchacha, la Tiny, de que vienen y les quitan las cosas a la gente, en vez de ayudarle le quitan lo poquito que tiene uno? ¿Le ha pasado eso a usted?
Sí, sí ha pasado esto unas cuantas veces porque la verdad llega la...
So yeah, they have been here before,
esto,
sweeping.
Pues, uno está durmiendo y...
Sometimes they come in when you're sleeping.
Te llevan todas las cosas.
Sometimes you can't even have enough time to pick up your stuff.
Es una cosa que no le dan tiempo para hacerlo tan rápido.
And again, purposely they don't give you the time to pick up your stuff.
Pero la verdad, ¿y les insultan? No, la verdad.
Órale, pues échale ganas, carnal, aquí vamos a estar.
We'll show the next one too, huh? Go ahead. We call you, fam?
Just call me
At
Anthony.
the time signature that I
Can
told
you
you.
tell listeners and viewers how you became
It get real rough on the streets because their concrete is not kind to anybody.
Thank you.
I mean, young, old, however that it is, because the wear and tear on you, it just winds up catching up to you. And it was one of them situations where they was coming around offering the hotel, and I said, hey, that's right up actually just my alley. It's actually just my first time being actually homeless. I'm 52 years old, and I was homeless for a good 4 or 5 years, and then I got this opportunity here, which I think that they was doing wonderful, coming us in to pick us up from the tents, and they was cleaning up us in just the city, and that was wonderful. And now everything just been rolling pretty smooth, and it's like the 18-month span was right on time. That wound up giving everybody time to heal some from the street, you know, and then to kind of get yourself together. Everybody surrounded just their lives around that 18 months, though. You know what I'm saying? Because everybody had to sign their paperwork. 18 months, and it ain't been 8 months yet.
Thank you.
And they like, oh, we want the hotel now. And that's just all the way wrong, man, because I'm quite sure all of us signed all just in forms. They had to sign something also on their end. And there's no way in any shape, fashion, or form in California you cannot brief no contract.
That's right.
So I mean, that right there alone, that's a serious issue there. You know what I'm saying? Because some of these elderly
Así como todos hemos estado viendo de siendo pobres, nos señalan, nos maltratan, y aparte de todo eso, tenemos que lidiar con el abuso del CPS que nos quita a nuestros hijos por el simple hecho de ser pobre. Es una de las conexiones también que es muy importante para que sepan que no nomás es una persona o dos, también son familias, hijos que se ven separados por el gobierno, que es CPS.
So again, and Israel being one of our newest residents, but a family member, we're a very small slice of a huge village that makes up the movement that is Poor Magazine, both here locally as well as to folks in occupied Squaxin territory. Shout out to Lisa Ganser, shout out to Nomi and folks in Talana and other folks all across Mama Earth. But the bottom line is, in the United States, in a capitalist system, which is set up to fail, which is set up to cage and incarcerate and kill every poor person it gets, there's no space for our houseless bodies. There's no accidents that the so-called public housing, the last vestige of housing for the poorest of us, was the mortgages were sold on the private commodities market in 2013 under Obama. You know, the other politrickster in the white people's house, that Julian Castro wrote a legislation, and I, by the way, love to fuck with the colonial language, but please credit us poor people if you use any of our words. We always say, poor folks, the only property us poor people have is intellectual property. So please credit us back. But I say that to say that Julian Castro wrote the legislation called RAD, which is yet another benignly titled politrickster movement to basically take these little crumbs that we had away from us poor people and criminalize our bodies, our lives, and this so-called public. So again, when we talk about the public, when we talk about this idea of land in the US under a capitalist system, there is no space for our poor people's bodies. And going back to the discussion that I was saying before, one of the things we learned, that we taught ourselves, is that we could not continue to only direct our fights, which we are constantly doing, standing with other warriors in the fights for against eviction, against displacement, homelessness, incarceration, polarized terror. But we could not only direct our fights to the aristocracy and the bureaucracy and the politricksters, that we actually had to recognize that the wealth hoarders among us have responsibility. The land stealers and resource extractors, that people, the United Snakes, are equally as important, if not more so, in redistributing their stolen and hoarded wealth to poor and houseless people like us so that we can build our own. Because we cannot continue to function under these constant lies of buying and selling Mama Earth as a commodity and buying and selling poor people's bodies and problems for profit, which is what the charity industrial complex does, the non-profiteering industrial complex does, and AKKdemia. Knowledge production made about us without us is absolute bullshit. And so we're not trying to smash these systems. We're just trying to say, make some room at the table. If you're in AKKdemia, invite us in as we lift up poor people's scholarship, Indigenous scholarship, as we lift up different solutions to land grabs and knowledge theft and ancestors theft, and recognize that there are different ways to operate that are not rooted in all of the spaces and places that continue to profit off our bodies without us. So we're gonna be talking a little bit about where we are now, and I'm hoping to leave a little space for Q&A. But we are definitely also, as we try to build a landless and poor people's movement rooted in poverty scholarship, as we stand with our brothers and sisters being swept like we're trash, we are also trying to build homefulness. And it is also rooted in poverty scholarship. And how do we do that as poor people, right? Well, we do a thing called People School, which I encourage all of you to enroll in. It's a degentrification and decolonization seminar that happens twice a year. And it's on Zoom now, thanks to COVID. We're on Zoom and we're also in person. And it's always translated in the two colonial languages that we are able to, Spanish and English. But I say that to say that People School is really about, again, teaching folks with different forms of race and class privilege how to stand in solidarity, how to walk with and radically redistribute blood-stained dollars into what I call love-stained dollars.
There's two tracks to People School. Track one is for poverty scholars, and track two is for people with race, class, and education privilege. So everybody is encouraged to participate.
Ashe. And you can find out more about any of these programs at poormagazine.org, or you can go for People School specifically, race, poverty, media justice.org. Race, poverty, and maybe Emily, you could put it in the chat.
And when is the next one happening?
Yeah, thank you. Black August, the last weekend of Black August. So I say that to say where we at now as well, because now as poor people trying to move a different way in this stolen land, because we know what happens when we houseless and Indigenous people try to take back stolen land through forms of liberation like squatting, which we're all about. But oftentimes, if not most of the time, they come in with guns and tanks, Shouts out to Moms for Housing, some of you might have heard about, which is just one of many poor people-led movements down in occupied Khalifa Saslan Tongva land. When a group of mamas tried to follow Moms for Housing, the sheriffs came in with guns and tanks. That's their typical settler program to get rid of us, just like it is when we're
Militarized police.
exactly
It's real.
exactly just like the sheriffs who come at you when you so-called haven't paid their lie of rent. So here we are doing it a different way, and we're dealing with the absolute insanity of settler colonial lies that make it impossible for poor and houseless builders to build. So we've actually created a land liberation legislation, not legislation, and we're trying to right now resist the city of Oakland, who has stopped Homefulness from finishing 8 units of housing for houseless families and elders.
Side note, the first time they tried to stop us, they accused us for taking too long in the construction.
Exactly. Moo, tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, and again, just also lifting up, all the poverty scholars, and even if there's poverty scholars here in the Zoom meeting, that, how is it that we do homefulness, which is 4 townhouses? There's going to be housing about 10 to 12 families. And it's that we use our community. We reached out to poverty scholars right here in East Oakland. Always, as a day laborer myself, in the construction, you always know someone that knows a little bit electrical. You always know someone that knows a little bit about foundation work, a little bit about framing work. So we put up the call, and this is how literally we build homefulness with the help of the community. And another thing is that some of these bloodstained dollars that was donated to Homefulness and Poor Magazine was put directly back into the poverty scholars, into the community that is in need of work. And a lot of the times what happens in our communities, Black and brown communities, with some of our poverty scholars is they'll know how to do the work, but they might not have the license or the permit. Anywhere you go in the US, as long as you do stuff by code, it shouldn't be a problem, right? So we took the chance into believing in our folks that they could do the work. And again, as an indigenous people building pyramids, this is where we come from. Our people build pyramids. And again, so lifting that up, working, also calling out those folks who have the paper of being architects, who went to academia and there was an architect, Bob Thies, who did about $15,000 to $20,000 pro bono in drawings. Again, working with us horizontally, not helping these poor people, but leading each other side by side. Oh. This is how it was built. And this is how you can also reparate some of your privilege, some of your access. If you don't got that dough, the money you can bring, give back with your access in your paper. But now, again, because we're doing anything by code, we're stuck here in the city of Oakland, which is one of the most unfriendly, hardest place to build. And as poverty folks, we find out every time we turn around, they have a fee. They want 3,000, they want 5,000, they want 10,000. And again,
let's not forget about the utilities.
The utilities, companies. And again, so as poor people, every little funding that we get, we use it. We ran out. That's why, like my brother Dick was saying, they are finding us with another 15,000. I don't know how they come for all these fees for poor people who we just want to be self-determined. And so now we're at the mercy of City of Oakland in zoning department that they'll let us build homefulness without really have to have 3 parking spaces, which is crazy because none of us have cars, but they want us to have 3 parking spaces, whatever. And so pushing back to these colonizers, right? Who think that they know what's good for our community, and they know, that parking spaces are more important than having families living here.
So this is just a little bit of, I don't know, Emily, if you have the land liberation legislation on there to show up, because we are looking at this as a global template. We go both to AKKademia. We just went to UC Berkeley. and UC Hastings, which is actively involved in not only theft of land, you can leave that up if you want, theft of land, but also criminalizing and sweeping poor people's bodies so that the student body doesn't have to see our houseless bodies, right? And so we do a thing called Stolen Land Hoarded Resources Tour. Our goal is to try to do the next one, hopefully, if someone gives us an invitation into Palestine, but we do them all over Mama Earth. And the goal with those is really to lift up not only poverty scholarship, but also the stolen land and stolen resources of both wealth hoarders and bureaucracy, politics, as well as academia, which we know are sitting on thousands of acres, sometimes millions of acres of stolen land, right on top of Indigenous people's bones, bodies, ancestors, as well as houseless people's lives. So we connect these dots. This is one of the powerful things about poverty scholarship, is all about the intersections. The reality is that the systems is set up to not only silence us, as we said in poverty scholarship, but to extinguish us. And the incarceration and the caging of our bodies is a crucial part of that. And so big love to the Justice Arts Coalition for the work that you're doing, for this conference, for this invitation and this convening in and of itself. Because again, you know, one of the ways that we can flip these scripts is by also looking and recognizing that, you know, it's absolutely a setup for us to be caged and silenced. And so lifting up Brother Jose Villarreal, JV, Brother Minister King William, and Cage Universal, Free Aslan, which are just examples of a couple of poverty scholars who've done years of their life behind the plantation cages, are part of Poor Magazine family, and broadcast radio on Poor People's Radio. You can also get us, Poor Magazine, on our SoundCloud page, and hear the powerful radio scholarship of my brother Muteado, Poor People's News, Voces de Migrantes en Resistencia, Krip-Hop Radio, Leroy Moore, and JV Free Aslan.
Slave Revolt Radio with Gerald White.
Exactly. And so we say all that to say, I know we're running out of time. We wanted to show a little bit of the second video, and then hopefully maybe give you a little bit of time for questions. Sorry, guys. An hour is not enough for us.
The struggle is real.
Right? The time
Living under poverty is a constant fight.
Exactly. And did you have the second video up there, Emily, or no? Not that one, but the other one?
This one?
Yeah, this is real fast. It's only a minute.
This land has given us everything, has lifted us, has gifted us. It's going to enrich us. We grow things on this land. And as people of this land, I want to just give thanks and homage to our being, our indigenous roots. For as long as you're indigenous, you're my family.
Is self-determination, where we understand that we cannot buy Mother Earth. What is homefulness? It's respect for the land and its people. So I'm so grateful to homefulness too, and the solidarity family that made it happen, but we, the people, will be good stewards of this land. So we're going to keep it respectful. We're going to build upon this land and be praised and be grateful.
So what you just saw was herstory. That is the beginning of Homefulness 2. Imagine that. And our Solidarity family, like Comité Apoyo and the Zapatistas, work as privileged folks to co-donor organize and shake some of this bloodstained dollars from the trees, because like my brother Muteado talked about, the cult of volunteerism for poor people is not an option. We're not saying, oh, everybody should get out there with the shovel. That's some bullshit. Poverty scholars who are barely struggling to stay alive do need to be paid. And that's real too. A lot of us at Homefulness are not paid. I don't get paid. I do a side hustle of taking care of elders and also of teaching. But some of us do. Bloodstained dollars are real. And that's another piece. We talk about that all the time. There's no bullshit when you're dealing with poor people. It's absolute truth all the time. And that's part of the struggle as well. Who you saw on there was Tracy, Mama Tracy Bell Borden, one of our powerful Poor Magazine family. And
better known as Sister Sekhmet.
That's right. And Auntie Frances Moore, co-founder of Homefulness, as well as one of the powerful warriors who lift up Self-Help Hunger Program, another poor and Black people-led movement right here in occupied Uchin. So I know that we're almost out of time. I wanted to see if anybody had any questions. We could also talk more in the last 4 minutes.
Any questions or comments that you have, give it to us with both loaded barrels.
Emily or someone could, if there's anything in the chat, you could read it, just because we can't really read it right now. But if not, that's cool. We could close out.
She got a little baby in her arms.
Well done. Yes.
I don't see anybody typing anything, but I'm just going to say, wow, thank you. This has been extremely enlightening, and I am really, really in admirership of your language, your clarity, your realness, your truthfulness, and yeah, I'm not sure what question I could ask other than how do you feel, how do you understand the concept of hope right now in the midst of your life experiences and what maybe you would love to see happen in a tomorrow, any tomorrow, a real tomorrow or a tomorrow 7 generations away? What do you see?
We would love to see more places like Homefulness spread out across the planet Earth.
And we also are here to help people do that vision too.
And I wouldn't exactly call it hope, because hope on the real is a desperate emotion. But I would love to see more than 2 homefulness sites on this planet to accommodate the underclass like us, to make sure that we and their animals, and even gardens, if people want to establish those, all have a home.
Yeah, and also that being real too, you know, that sometimes we are perceived by this system, by this government, as broken people. I want to say and lift up myself and some of our folks too, you know, coming out of addiction, coming out of brokenness. We also want to, you know, help out and give that, that the thing that sometimes gets taken away from poverty scholars, the believe in ourselves. And that's why we always say none of us come from academia. Myself just went out to high school, never went to college. I was always told that I was dumb, that I didn't know how to build. And again, we want to take that, that power that sometimes this system, takes away from us and break us with it. It makes us even believe that we are worthless. And so we want to say, when we come together from black, brown, yellow, red, no matter where you come from, and we come together as a unit, as a collective, there's stuff like homefulness that can happen, no matter in the world. And we want to share this with all other poverty scholars. We not only want this here in the Bay Area, we want to share this template in Mexico, we want to share this template in Brazil, we want to share this template in all the places where there's poverty scholars.
Oh, and wealth hoarders. That's real talk. Anything else?
I had it on the tip of my tongue, and now it's gone.
Well, I do want to say Poor Magazine is in fact Poe, and we need your dough. And I'd say that lovingly, but also real. We're not involved or attached to the charity industrial complex.
We don't take government grants of any kind.
Right, banksters or gangsters. But we do appreciate support. The books are all on a sliding scale. This again is the book on how to not call the police ever. This is not something we just wrote a book about. We don't ever write a book or talk about anything that we don't teach, live, and struggle with. So we never engage with the systems that test, arrest, or incarcerate us. So people want to check out more of the books. There's powerful poetry collections by my brother D. Allen, Muteado, Silencio, Leroy Moore, Aunti Francis Moore. Go to poorpress.net. You can also, I did children's books, and so did Leroy, specifically trying to change the protagonist. We never see a houseless mama and daughter as a protagonist.
Get yourself a copy of When Me and Mama Slept Outside.
Ashe, and also Unwritten Law by D. Allen. And then we also have anthologies like Survival Guide through COVID-19 and the virus called poverty. We know as poor people that lines around the block for food and crumbs did not begin with COVID-19. So we're really, again, lifting up solutions. We use art all the time. I love the name of this movement, this coalition, because art is the only way we survive. We're artists and cultural workers.
This is the one way we can process this insane reality called poverty that we are kept in.
So exactly, and for other poverty scholars who might be watching, poesía, arte, art and poetry, performance and theater, these are the things that actually have made this poverty scholar be able to stay alive to the shit that I have been through. I'm going to be actually doing a theater series next year called Broken, which is based on the ancestors, the ancestor houseless and so-called mentally ill women who I come from. Again, we also do Teatro de los Pobres, Teatro de los Pobres, theater of the poor, because we know that, again, theater, art, music, and spirit are how we survive.
Theater is also used as a teaching tool and a big part of People's School.
And so when you come to watch us, if you do come to People's School, believe me, you won't be bored. It won't be a thesis in somebody's digital trash can. All love to all the thesis creators and all the digital trash cans.
All your professors are right here.
And also, if you're in AKKdemia, invite us in. We do workshops and teachings in and outside the institution. One of the things that we try to lift up is this concept of unselling Mama Earth. If we're really going to stop homelessness, settler colonial violence called sweeps and evictions, we have to stop seeing Mama Earth as a commodity. We already know from all of our Indigenous and First Nations ancestors that Mama Earth was never supposed to be for sale. So to all the warriors all across Mama Earth who work every day tirelessly to lift up and listen, to stop Line 3 and stop all of this extraction nation, to stop this poisoning of our water and our relatives from Moana Nui, from West Papua to West Oakland, We always say, change won't come from a savior, a pimp, or an institution. Change will only come from a poor people-led revolution. Thank you, everybody.
And thank you so much for the interpretation, for the sign language.
Oh.
We really appreciate it and loved it. Thank you so much.
Una cosa más, recuerden, este proyecto es de gente pobre para la gente pobre.
Oh,
Mateo.
Oh, Mateo. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, everyone, so much for attending. Thank you to the amazing panel that we had here today. I know myself is very moved, and we're so grateful to have you. If you learned something new today, if today's session inspired you, challenged you, or taught you something new, please share your support for the convening if you can by making a donation. I'm sharing a link in the chat to our donation page. Funds received during the convening will be put towards compensating the presenters, prioritizing increased honorariums for carceral system impacted presenters. I'm also sharing in the chat links to stay connected with Jack and our network of teaching artists, activists, incarcerated artists, and others doing inspiring work at the intersection of arts and justice. So I will be sending that right now. Thank you so much to Elle, to Gloria, to Gloshanda and Mel for doing our interpretation today. And lastly, your participation and feedback. So please be sure to complete our post-event survey after the last convening session you attend, which hopefully this is not the last one, but we would love to hear from you. So that's in the chat now. And without further ado, you are free to go.
Love us on the digital streets, fam. Likes and loves, all helpful. Appreciate you.
Yes,
yeah. And we'll be sending out those links later, Dee and Lisa. So
there you go. Thank you so much for being here, and we are very grateful for all that you brought. Thank you so much, and we will see you all soon. Bye.